I'm out there with dudes that are going to be playing in the NFL, I'm just, I'm in my head. And when I first got here, I lost all my confidence because I
Mm.
realized I wasn't prepared when it
Yeah.
came to football. Like,
Have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt like the universe just kicked you square in the junk? Well, from my experience, these low moments can set us up for some amazing things if we have the right mindset, the right attitude to find the lesson, to look inside ourselves and try to become a better version of ourselves. My name's Nathaniel Burke, and I'm the host of the show Kicked in the Junk. I hope you enjoy. Hello, everybody. It's Nathaniel here with Kicked in the Junk. I am super excited today because I have a guest that I've been following for quite a while here. I've seen him in his high school days. I've had the unfortunate pleasure of coaching against him and instantly regretted that. Um, he is now a Division I athlete down in Washington Eastern University. He's a coach. He's got his own podcast. He's running camps now, and he's just really taking himself to different levels all the time. And I love seeing what this young man is doing. Nolan Ulm, thanks for being on the show.
yeah, thanks for having me, Nathaniel. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I've been following you for a while, and I've kind of just been on the sidelines watching your journey and have seen so much of the stuff you're doing now. And it's always so amazing to see, looking at your football career. I've watched it all. Actually, yesterday I was like, hey, you got highlights on here on your guys' website. I'm like, this is amazing. Got to watch through all that. And it's just so cool to see. But success, people always like to celebrate success because why not? It's amazing. It's fun. But you know the purpose of this show. We've talked about it, and the difference is that sometimes life does hit us hard. And why I wanted you on the show is because you are doing these amazing things, but I know deep down inside it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always and even some days it's not this glamorous and scoring touchdowns and running camps and having cool guests on your podcast. It's hard. So maybe do you want to dive into one of your kicked in the junk moments and when you felt like the universe just hit you so hard? I got one that I want to dive into, but maybe it's the same one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, man. I could think, like, I've probably failed more than anybody on campus here, more than most people that I know in my life. I mean, whether that's football, outside of things, I'm always failing first, failing forward, failing fast. That's kind of what I come back to. I know that that's ultimately, like there's that classic, I got it behind me, but the Michael Jordan trailer, right? And
Yeah.
he's talking about, I succeed because I fail. And I think that's really like I've never been the most talented. I've never been the most blessed, but I always have had to find another way to something to hang my hat on. And
Hmm.
you know, I really was just like everyone else, and I kind of really like fit in and didn't really. Yeah, I was good at football, but then things changed in my freshman year and in high school, and I just started attaching that what was going to make me ahead of everyone else or make me stick out was going to be my work ethic, and I just knew that no matter what, it's so cliche, but it's so true. All these people say it. You can always be the hardest worker in the room. You're not necessarily the most talented, the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, the best looking, the
Mm-hmm.
smartest, right? But
Yeah.
there's so many different skills and different things that you can acquire through having a great work ethic. And so, you know, probably if there was one in my football career, it would be getting here and just, oh my goodness, I got my butt kicked. Like I thought
That's
I
the
was
one
a
I want
good
to talk
player.
about. That's funny.
Yeah.
That was on my head. So I'm like, okay, I want to know about this because not to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I always personally, I look for lessons in everything. There's people in your life everywhere that you may not adopt everything that they have. A good example, a lot of listeners aren't D1 athletes. A lot of them might not even be athletes, but there's a lesson here. So let's dive into it. What
Yeah,
was your
exactly.
moment? And then we can kind of go from there.
Oh man. And you know what? I'll even start before that, like, because we played touch against each other.
Mhm.
There was one touch game, and this is just like a small example. I'm just cooking dudes. I'm running past people. I'm just like this 15-year-old, right? These old dudes trying to cover me, and boom, drop post. Like 3 plays later, wide open, two wide open touchdowns, drop them. And I remember like after that, I was it was so bad. Like the next 3 days, and we're talking about touch football, you know, in Kelowna, like there's no repercussions. Like I'm not gonna get my scholarship pulled or, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
no one was watching. Like it was just the boys like having fun, really. But
Yeah.
I took it so seriously. And I remember I was just like the lowest of the low. And I could tell you so many times, especially just at the receiver position, of different like drops that I've had. And it's one of those things, right? Like it's equivocal to whatever the mistake is and whatever you do in your life. But like
Mhm.
dropping the pass and receiver is like the cardinal sin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, anyways, I'd had a bunch of things like that before and gone through. But then when I got here, it was just it was so much like I'm out there with dudes that are going to be playing in the NFL, and I'm just I'm in my head. And when I first got here, I lost all my confidence because I
Mhm.
realized I wasn't prepared when it came
Yeah.
to football. Like I was a dominant force in the weight room. I could roll with anyone here, and I was probably the strongest, one of the strongest at least in my class, like even over linemen and stuff. And so, um, yeah, like great technique in the weight room, all these things. We had it so well, but then it was almost like I just needed to get reps in order to really earn that confidence on the field. Like, because at a certain point, like, you know, I look back and I'm like, oh, like I should have been more like I'm a dog and all this stuff, but like I just wasn't. I didn't have those skills yet, and
Totally.
so I needed to go earn them. And so that's definitely like what got me out of it was just like earning the confidence through the work. But I could think of so many different situations, but if there was one that I could really pinpoint was it was this practice, and our quarterback at the time was Eric Barrier, and he went on the Broncos for a little bit. Now he's in the USFL or whatever is going on with the merge, but he was with the USFL. I know the XFL might combine with it, but anyways, we're on there, and he's giving me shots, and I'm getting open, and then boom, just like dropping the ball, or like then I'm getting clamped the next play, and I really felt like I had failed because I really wanted to come in. Like my mentality was I want to be one of the best players to come out of Eastern Washington, period. And it still is that way. And I'm honestly so grateful that I came in like that because the amount of growth that I've been able to have and be able to push through it, and that's like anyone in life, right? Like if you start somewhere and you're just at the bottom of the bottom, like that can be an exciting thing if you take an empowering meaning from it, because really your story is going to be so much more inspiring because you're really going to have to become the best person that you can be. And a lot of people, they get there and they only get a little bit more out of their abilities. And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, like I was dropping passes, and then I went and talked to my receiver coach, and he kept pushing me. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, that a year and a half later, because it was kind of weird, we had a spring season in COVID. Like a year and a half later, we get in a game, just to flash forward, and Eric, the same quarterback, we get in a playoff game, and I'd gotten a little bit of playing time that year. But like I said, we had three guys ahead of me that all two of them got NFL shots, and then one of them is about to get one. And then another guy, like yeah, two others that probably will get them too, but they were younger guys. So we had like 5, 6 NFL guys in there. And so I get in the game like late in this playoff game, boom, Eric drops back, whole shot, catch my first touchdown. And so like it always comes full circle. And a lot of that, like I said, was from the work and earning that confidence, and really like I kept taking shots on myself. Like I always gonna get in the position where I could catch the ball or the game winner. Like it and so I was never gonna let fear hold me back, even if I had it.
Totally. And you know, it's funny because you kind of glazed over it. And this is the stuff that I love is you're like, oh, and you know, you got so one, you're going from high school, you're the big fish in a small pond. And now you're just a fish in the ocean. And quite literally, if anybody doesn't know, understand college sports, that's fine. It's the highest level of collegiate sport in the States. And in football, that's as high as it goes for that level. So that's a huge transition. So you're going up against guys that are looking to go pro, can't getting shots of going pro. That's a huge transition. But it was funny that you glossed over, oh, a year and a half later. It's like, wait a minute. Like that's a lot of time. And that's a lot of work. So what I wanted to go into is like maybe just some quick points on like your expectations versus reality. And then I want to dive into the work it took because I think, and myself included, and everybody's been there. It's like you have this shot and you're like, oh man, I got this new job, new career, new business. Here we go. or even a new relationship, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like this is so cool. And then
Right.
that sets in, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of work required for this. There's a lot of me having to get better. So maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, your expectations versus reality, and then we'll dive into the work a bit.
Yeah, and here's I'm gonna let it all loose because I really don't talk about my mindset a lot with people, but it's evolved over the years. And when you really start to get around people that are world class or are pushing to be world class, you really start to understand what that actually looks like
Yeah.
and how we all have so many weaknesses. And so
Oh,
it's about like really creating like filling those gaps as much as you can, but also like taking your superpowers to another level because
mm,
that's what like it's not about being mediocre at everything. It's about being great at a couple things. And so the guys that I've been around and when you say like expectations versus reality, like it just comes back to kind of what I was saying too. Like you have to really look yourself in the mirror and think like, okay, what am I really putting into this? Like, where are my actual weaknesses? How detailed am I? And so I'll give you just an example of what I do, just to give people some perspective on what I'm doing to go to the NFL or whatever, to give myself a shot to be world class, right?
I want to hear this because this is good. I'm gonna pin it for a second. How hard was it to hear the weaknesses when the
Yeah,
coaches told? Like I've had them, and I'm like, oh no, it's terrible. But how hard was that?
no, it's tough. And I think the reality is though too, is that one of the toughest things is if you can really set the standard before you embark on a journey or a goal
Yeah,
and really be like, listen, I know I'm gonna look myself in the mirror at the end of this and say that I gave it everything I got and realize, really buy into the fact that the pain of regret is so much worse than the pain of discipline, then
yeah,
you'll
that's
be
a
all
big
right.
one.
And then you'll always be able to look at that truth. But if you never set that standard, I mean, I see guys come in and you can just see it. It's patterns of their career, patterns of habits, patterns of movement. And that's all it comes down to. The quality of habits will
Mm,
determine the quality of your life. And
yeah.
so I just think that um, it definitely is hard to look at them, but it really is the best thing. And if you can
Yes.
really shift that, it's so exciting for me. I love finding a weakness because I can make a plan and I can have steps, actionables every day that I can schedule and to do the actual work to get better at those things. And it's so applicable to anything in life. And so
Hmm.
I'll go into like you're saying, like I'll give you an example of a weakness. Okay. So we just finished our season and we have like 5 phases of basically becoming the best athlete you can be. And so I'll break it down really quickly because it's really more for athletes, but it just gives you an idea of like what our performance profile is. So there's technical, which is like your football skills, tactical, which is understanding the game, right? The
Hmm.
tactics of football. Then there's physical, like speed, strength, power, all those things, conditioning. There's psychological, right?
Yep.
Confidence, self-talk, visualization,
Yep.
all those sorts of skills. And then there's health, which is your recovery, your sleep,
Yep.
your nutrition, this, all that. So we have a way of measuring our performance and being able to look holistically at ourselves as athletes. And so I spent like 3, 4 days going through all that on a whiteboard, every single one of those areas. And so I would
Wow.
put down, I went and talked to every single coach that was involved with my performance. So my receivers coach, right? So my position coach, it'd be like your manager, the
Yep.
CEO, everybody,
Yep. Yep.
the janitor, I don't know, anyone that has interactions with you or sees your performance. Boom, I go
Yep.
talk to all of them and then I get, hey, what are my weaknesses? What can I get better? And I'm just so open to it. I encourage it. When they say something, I don't get all closed up. My ego doesn't get hurt.
Defensive. Yeah.
I'm always encouraging it because the more I can find those things out, the more I can solve them and be a part of the solution and take ownership of them. But if you never take ownership of your weaknesses, then you'll never be able to be the solution. That's the craziest thing. But a lot of people don't want to take ownership of them, right?
Yes.
Because it's
Yeah.
tough.
No, and you know what you're saying is I love it. And I think of how many times do we like, I say wherever you point the blame is we're giving the power to,
Right. Exactly.
right?
That's
Oh,
my
well,
point.
it's not these guys are just taller, these guys are just bigger, these guys are just better. You can put that into business, you can put that into relationships, you can put that into anything, you can start pointing blame. But something that I love that you do is like you said, you're relishing at the idea of like, no, I have weaknesses. And that means setting aside your humility. And I find that so hard for people. Again, you do it, the culture that you have there clearly supports that, which is amazing and why they're producing such great athletes and great people. But I find our society needs more of that. We need more people that are willing to. look in the mirror, be humble, realize you're not the best.
Right.
There's work, whether it's in a relationship and your partner needs to tell you need to do something, that you need to work
Yeah.
on this, or your friends. So that's super good. I absolutely love that. And you didn't just take a surface approach. You took, you had 5 avenues that you addressed. And then you guys broke it down into what that looked like and asking people and getting feedback. It makes me wonder, again, if I think of like relationships, if you were wanting to get in a relationship, who do you go to? You go to your, people that you know, or maybe kind of know you, and look at like, oh, right, maybe I should ask them about about certain categories.
Right.
And you start finding out, oh my God, well, you know what? You're kind of rude. I'm rude, really? Yeah. And everybody tells you you're rude. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Right. So like it's something little, but it's the same principle.
Yeah, it is the same principle. And it's crazy too. I'm really obsessed with Tony Robbins' work, and I've
Yeah,
delved
I
so
know.
much into that stuff.
Every time I listen to your podcast and you mention them, I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff.
Right. But it's the same thing with him, man. And like the wheel of life that he talks about, right? It's whatever. I can't remember all, like, I could come up with them, but it's like health, relationships,
Yep.
finance, time. But he's got them all ordered in a way
Yes. Yep.
where, and like, obviously, I would get into it if that was the topic, but like, that's the exact same thing with you
Yeah.
as a person, as I'm saying this performance profile, like me with an athlete. And even when I'm talking about this, though, like all this stuff can be so misconstrued so quickly, though, because it
Yeah.
can be so easy to get on the whiteboard. And there's a bunch of different things that I have with that where I get goals and then I have timetables for them. Then I put the why, because reasons come first, answers come second. And the why is so important for your goals. And then I have a progression of it, because you don't want to just jump in doing 6 days a week of lifting heavy. You want a progression of where you're really trying to go, beginning with the end in mind so you can know where to start today. But I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
they get on the whiteboard, they get the plan, but they don't actually schedule it. All that really matters is what you schedule and then do with your actions. And so
Yes.
if the whiteboard, if the thing that I just said isn't going to help you do that, like if just getting up and be like, I'm just going to start doing this is going to help you, then do that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the best people in the world, they do this sort of thought process. They break it down, and you can find outliers, right? Guys that are so talented. I mean, we got guys here that eat a bag of Cheetos, jump up and can run a 4.3 like in the morning, but
Anybody
they
listening,
don't
a
look.
4.3 is very, very fast.
Yeah, it's very fast. Very, very fast. So they get jump high, they can go catch a crazy one-hander touchdown. But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter though. They're gonna get passed up, because the reality is I've passed up guys that have way more talent than me here. I've seen
Mm.
guys get passed up that have way more talent. Cooper Kupp wasn't the most talented receiver when he was here. Who now he was a Super Bowl MVP a couple of years ago. He wasn't the most talented out of that group. That's the craziest thing. And so,
Yeah.
like
I
you said,
love that.
we have a culture here that really does promote that, and he set the standard and what it looks like to have a
Yep.
growth mindset. And that's a lot of what we're talking about now. Is that's the fundamental pillar to anyone that wants to grow in life, to succeed. You have to have the fundamental belief that your abilities can be improved.
Mhm.
And when guys with fixed mindset or people with fixed mindset, like that's the people that are listening to this podcast won't have fixed mindsets, because it's
Yeah.
awesome, right? Like your crowd, you're getting those people, but like when I'm having my message, when I'm putting it out there, all this stuff, like it's not for people with fixed mindsets, because you're not going to listen, and we'll do our best to get you to listen. But this is for people that want to actually take control of their life and be a leader of their own life.
Yeah. I love that. I actually really like that phrase, a leader of their own life, because, sometimes people just, it's, oh, well, I can't, they pass it off. They pass the blame. They are willing to just be on the sidelines of their own game, for lack of a better term. They're totally fine to
Absolutely.
just just be on the sidelines. And I do understand there is things that happen that hit us hard, clearly, that we get emotionally, we're like, holy, this is tough. But as I said before, is like you got to find, like, yeah, you feel it, you can't ignore it, feel it, but then find, you said before, is your why. What do you want? What's so deep important to you? So to tie back for you, what is your why? Like, because every time I hear you, you're so passionate. You are, it's like every time I see you're trying to help every human possible, which is amazing and also crazy. But there's something so cool about that. So what's your why in this? And then I want to dive into habits and culture. So
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, I think there's a lot of layers to mine, and it's evolved so
yeah,
much.
Of course.
When I was in high school and I really just committed to having a Rocky montage of every day of my life to go play D1 football, my why back then was to give back to those kids and really just be like a symbol of what was possible. Because at
Hmm.
our school, I walk past in the hallways and I've told the story a million times, and I see Taylor Loeffler right
Yeah.
in the trophy case, and he's a guy who went to Boise State from KSS.
Yeah.
Absolute ball player. And
Yeah.
every single day I wanted to replace his name with mine. And uh like obviously that's just what drove me, but it was way more
Yeah.
deep. But it wasn't just like I wanted to be better than him, and because all that stuff fades. But I knew that eventually my name would be in there when I got in
Mm.
there, and someone else would want to do the same thing to mine. And guess what that would do? That would get them to the best version of themselves. And so I just was
Yeah.
obsessed with that and inspiring other kids to still, even now, like sport is such an incredible way to create leaders. Whether you go play pro ball or not, there's so many incredible lessons, connections, relationships, things that come out of it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so incredible. So at first it was kind of like an energy transfer to that next generation. And then it really
Mm.
started to shift, like especially when I got here, it still was that, but it was even on a larger scale. And I feel like there's not many people, I know there's not many people that have gone from, I didn't ever leave to a prep school. I was straight from Kelowna, straight
Mm.
from Canada, and came
Yeah.
down here and that have gone to the NFL. And so that's been the thing that I'm chasing. And then obviously like my
Hmm.
family, everyone that I'm doing it for. But and this was something I was gonna bring up later, but I'll bring it up right now. The reality is we all only have one life.
Yeah.
And every single day I wake up with a burning fire inside of me because I will not live an ordinary life. I'm going to live an extraordinary one. And it's
Hmm.
so true. Like I see seniors, they come in, everyone tells them all the right things, and people listen to your podcast. Oh yeah, like this is like you got 5 years to do whatever you can to become
Yeah.
whatever you're going to be. That's
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't set in for a lot of guys and they don't reach their potential. That is scary to me. And
Yeah.
so that kind of drives me too, because
Yeah.
I truly only get one shot. So I'm not going to waste time around people that are not going to get me to my goals, that are not going to serve me. I'm not going to waste time focusing on things that are going to distract me. I'm not going to waste energy on, distractions
Yeah.
where it's just not serving me at all. I'm not, because I only get one shot at this. So part of that is really what drives me. And then I just want
Hmm.
to serve people. And I know that I need to become better every single day if I want to impact the amount of people that I want to impact, which is 1 billion people in my lifetime. So, and that kind of came on to me after looking into the Tony stuff. And
Yeah.
football is awesome, and it's I just, like I said, I want to go to the league and put on for kids, but at a certain point, I don't want to just catch a ball of air. I want to really change people's lives and do great things in a positive way, just like you're doing right now. So
No, I love that. And you can hear the energy behind it. You can feel like I don't know, we're thousands of miles away, but I can feel that energy coming through. And I'm sure anybody that's going to be listening to this can feel that, which is so cool. And, there's something that you said there and I absolutely loved is this has always been my, I talked about at the beginning is my mindset is I can learn from anybody. And it's just a matter of what. So you can go to gurus, coaches, you can go to the best people and learn from them. 100%, you'll get something really valuable. You can also look to somebody that you, let's say, don't admire
I love that.
and learn from them. And like you said, you're like, I see these seniors coming by and wasting their time. And it's like, you can learn from that. So it doesn't mean that I'm like, hey, I'm going to spend all my time with you, but like, no, that's what I don't want to do.
Right.
And now if you can, and you're clearly doing this, you have, okay, I don't want to do this because these guys are doing something that I don't want. And I'm pulling towards this because these guys are doing something I do want. And now you're looking for both. And that's kind of the idea with the show is like you can pull from
Yes.
anybody and learn. It just takes that humility and the presence to do that. And I find that something really missing. And you've kind of mentioned before, I'm not wasting time. I'm not putting yourself in these positions where you're distracted and chasing things that don't serve you and your purpose. Right. And that purpose, like you said, is going to keep evolving and changing. But I love that you're out there to try to set that path because I don't know all their names and stuff, but it was like when people first broke the 5 minute mile or 6 minute mile, whatever it was, and then one guy did it, and then another guy did it, and then everybody did it, right? And it's the same idea. It's like that's kind of the way I'm feeling you're doing this is like, look, kids from Kelowna, and it doesn't have to be Kelowna, it could be any small city
Yeah.
that you can put yourself, you can do these really amazing things, even if it's not football. You can do some amazing things. So on that, and you mentioned before, is you're not putting yourself in those scenarios. So let's talk about habits. Let's talk about what are some of the bad habits that you had to drop and that are still maybe struggling with, because let's face it, like there's a
Right.
lot of like fun things out there that are actually could be a lot of fun, but don't help you. And then what are some of the good habits you're doing now?
Yeah. Really great question. Man, I feel like honestly, like, looking back now, I never gave myself credit for it, but I became a pro when I was in high school and just how I approach things. I never went to parties. Like I went to like two and they were after it was like the end of our season. And one of
Yeah.
them was like my sophomore year. Like, and I never drank. I never
Mm.
smoked weed. I never did any of that stuff.
That's rare coming from Kelowna.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. And that was my thing though. Like,
Yeah.
and just to touch a little bit on what you just said, because that was really profound stuff. It's all just pattern recognition and
Yep.
noting. Like I was so blessed by, I didn't like God, whatever, higher power, someone gave it to me that I just saw certain patterns within
Mm.
people at our school that all these popular kids, everyone talked about doing such big things. And I just was like, you guys aren't taking any action. Like you guys are just,
Yeah.
this might sound a little intense, but like you guys are sitting down and having lunch. I'm in the weight room working out. Like I
Yeah. Yeah.
know I'm going to go to the next level and get around these people. And I struggled in high school because I couldn't relate to many people and I wanted to be around hungry individuals. And I came to the perfect culture here. Um,
Yeah. Isn't that
but
funny how that worked, hey?
Oh yeah, and that's the craziest. Like I really
Synchronicities.
believe in all that. Like putting it out in the universe. I mean, I got a vision board. I got all those things, and
They're like,
like
great. They're like, you got a vision board? Like, yeah, that's like the first thing on the list. You don't even talk to unless you got six of them. That's
right.
awesome.
And I screwed up. I was really judgmental in high school, and I burned a lot of bridges. And that's one thing I learned. I'm really glad I'm learning when I got here, and I don't judge anyone. Like everyone's on their own path, and I'm just gonna
Yeah.
do what I'm gonna do. And if we're destined to be in each other's lives, like let's do it. But when you talk about habits, though, obviously like waking up early, like that's one that really changed my life. I got that from Jocko in high school
Mm.
early, and I do it wouldn't be every morning because you got to get sleep as an athlete. Like if I wasn't an athlete, oh my goodness, but you have to sleep, so it kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
4:30 and just going, I'd go out for runs. It'd be really quick, like I'd just run around a loop around my neighborhood and then I just work out. But I would say like just working out, moving your body, and then really like doing things that push you past what you think is possible. And so I can
Yeah.
give like a couple different examples. Like we do these gnarly, just torturous competitions here. And one of them, we had to do reverse curls. So we're holding this bar against a rack. So you're basically holding this bar up in a reverse curl position. And it was supposed to be like a 5-minute competition. It turned into like a 16-minute competition between me and my buddy. And we were just looking at each other and it was like you reach the depth of your soul and like on some
Yeah.
David
Yeah.
Goggins stuff. And I really like David Goggins stuff, but like
Yep.
I get into that place. Like we went
Yeah.
first competition last year was a plank. Who could hold it the longest? And we got
Mm.
to like 10 minutes. And so that was like just intense stuff. And so I think that's a really good habit of like finding. I really believe in doing a really hard thing. And there's a term for it that I learned about. I was doing it without even knowing it. A misogi.
Mm.
I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically I think it's a Japanese culture. They do it where it one really hard thing a year. And a lot of these entrepreneurs
Yes, I've
take
heard
really
of
hard,
that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Very
they
cool.
planned it out. But for us, like we do one hard thing a week here. Like that's just college football, right? So, but I
52
really kind of
times
realized like,
more than normal.
yeah, that's something though that people can really implement into their year calendar, right? Like, and
Totally.
I
And
think,
sorry, I was just gonna cut you. Sorry to cut you off, but like, just think about that work difference. 50, like if you are doing that 50 times more, let's say 50, take a couple weeks off. You're doing 50 times more than these other guys that are doing some crazy stuff. Just to like me, I'm like wrapping my head around that. I'm like, holy shit, like I don't even know if I do that. So that's amazing. Anyway, keep
yeah,
going. That's super cool.
yeah. And so that's some habits. And then just getting yourself better, like growing. And so I'm a huge reader. And then I think it's awesome, but you really need to implement it in your life. It's not about how many books you have on your bookshelf. It's about how different your life looks after you read that book. And so
Oh, that's super
I'm
good.
huge into doing that though, because I think that there's so much value into that and it does change how I move. And then it allows me to get on here and just be able to go, go, go because I have so many things in my back pocket, so many skills, so many things. Like I've read almost 200 books.
Wow.
So it's like it's getting up there, but like my goal was 700 because that's what Tony's was. So I'll get there
Yeah.
eventually, but he read that in like a couple years. It's just different because I'm a D1 athlete, so 8 hours, 10 hours of my day goes to football, and then it's just like
Yep.
the rest of the time I try to squeeze out all this learning that I can. So that's what I would say, like learning. And then I would say the biggest thing, the most important thing out of anything that I say today is your peer group and the power of a positive peer group. Like you really are the average of the five people you hang around.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, like it makes such a difference. Even if you just spend a little bit of time with that person who's a little negative or this or that, and you treat
Yes.
them as a peer, which is
Yes.
it means that you care about how they
Their
think about
opinion.
you,
Yeah.
then it's dangerous. But if you
Yeah.
get in a room where you're drowning and you're struggling to keep up, you will immeasurably grow. And so I'm
Yes.
even in a position right now going to my senior year, like I'm hungry for the next peer group. I'm hungry for and this it's tough. There's not many people in football that are really like into stuff that we're into where
Yeah.
I want to know what it takes to lead the masses of people and deal with world issues and be
Mhm.
a world leader. There's not many people in football like that, but it's good to get around people though that are going to go make the play and be a dog, and that transfers over to you if you don't have it.
Totally. Or even
So
finding people that are maybe not in football, but in any field
yeah,
that's different than yours because it's like, right, there's something there. How can I learn from the swim team? I don't know. How can I learn from the academic team? Which, by the way, I did read your profile. You're the academic, not to toot your horn, but academic all-star for how many years in a row now? Three, four? So
my
just to
whole career basically. Yeah,
yeah, so it shows you the work there, which is super cool because it's that requires effort. Being a you know there are some athletes out there that you probably know that just are these just God, not to take anything away from them, but they are just God-given athletes. They
oh,
woke up and
absolutely.
they were just that way, right? And it's amazing and it's wonderful, but there's a difference there with you, which I think is so cool. And that's I think so many people can learn from. So again, you're on the good habits. These are so critical. And you're talking about the peer group. One thing I wanted to add there was I think I can't remember if it was Jim Rohn or was it Brian Tracy that mentioned that 95% of your thoughts are from those you spend the most time with.
Wow.
Yeah, and when I heard that, I was like, "What?" like think about how impactful that is. I mean, your thoughts are not your own, generally speaking. So unless so you really have to tailor who you're spending time with. And if you're not spending, let's say you don't have a big peer group, I kind of took that a step further. Where are you spending your time? Are you spending hours on social media scrolling the next BS and looking at things that aren't serving you or helping you or learn and whatever? Are you watching drama, whatever you're doing? Are they creating these feelings from shows, movies, whatever that are not helping you? That does impact you, right? That impacts your thoughts. So something that I thought was super interesting. I want to
Yeah.
dive in to bad habits. What are some bad habits or some
Yeah.
maybe that you've had to drop? And then some that you're like, man, this is work.
Yeah, and that's funny. I was just about to say that because yeah, I'm definitely not perfect. There's been
No.
times where I've been freaking it's such a balance, right? Because
Yeah.
there's been times where first of the year, like there was like 3 months in high school, I didn't go on any social media and I
Yeah.
was literally just living under a rock just grinding. And there is such a peace and solitude to that.
Totally.
But at the same time, too, in order to make the impact that I now want to make, I can't do that. I need to
Yep.
be putting content out. I need to be growing my audience, doing all these things. And so, yeah, social media is one thing for sure that can sometimes get me where it's like, it's really just little pockets of the day, but I really want to be so dialed with my time where like I get scrolling or even I just start looking up football stuff that like doesn't matter. Like I just want to see like what a guy had stats wise, but it doesn't really matter. And this is where some people are
Exactly.
like,
Yep.
man, like you don't need to be that crazy, but that's my goal though. I want to be in a position where my time is worth millions of dollars. And in order to do that, I need to treat my time like it is right now. And so
Yeah.
that's what I'm really working towards doing right now. I mean, other bad habits, like I said, it was just I've had certain people in my circle that aren't detrimental, but they're like mosquitoes where they just kind of only bring up negative things. And yeah, maybe we
Yeah.
work together, but they're just negative consistently. And it really, looking back, it shifted how I looked at certain things, which is unfortunate, but it's a really good lesson for me. And so that's what I always kind of turn those into. And then I don't know. That's really it. Like other than that, I just there's standards and bright lines that I have in my life with my health, with football, with all these different things that I don't have a TV. We
Mm.
will watch like a movie every week or 2 weeks, and it's always like it's like a really good movie because I really love
Yeah,
watching some
yeah,
quality storytelling and acting, and
yeah,
it's
of
fun. And
course.
there's I need to find a way to connect with my girlfriend too. Otherwise I get in a lot of trouble. So that's our fun time. Otherwise, she's like, dang, like all we do is just like learn and like challenge each
I
other.
don't want to do
So
math anymore. It's getting
yeah,
annoying together, right? Yeah.
seriously. So that's kind of the ones that I'm working on. But I think it's really an interesting balance for people like us and anyone who's trying to make an impact on these social media platforms of how do you still, because I
Yes.
have things set up where I have an app that shuts them all down and I can't get into them. And then where
Nice.
it's like you post it, but then there are important messages and communication that comes through there where I'm trying to get a podcast guest scheduled. And so
Of course.
I think
Yep.
that's good. I just like talking about it now too, because the more I put it out there, the more it's like, okay, I need to hold myself accountable. And so I think it's just having different rhythms. And then also, like for me, sometimes one of my bad habits, funny enough, is probably beating myself up too much when I do
Yeah.
things like that or when I mess up. And it can be such a good tool. Fear of failure can be a good tool because it's like a campfire. It'll roast your marshmallows, but if it gets
Yeah.
out of control, it'll burn your house
It'll
down. And
roast
so
you. Yeah.
you really need to be smart with it. And obviously at the end of the day, like and that's what I would say with any of this stuff, like use whatever you have, like whether that's pain, whether that's passion, use whatever you have to get what you want. I used a lot of pain and anger, and it's not or sustainable, but it was obtainable in that moment, and it got me to where I am now to be able to have sustainable ways of doing that. And so I would say, be careful with things like that, fear, anger, all those things. But they are very powerful tools. And especially when you're trying to break through the glass to the next level, sometimes it can be really helpful to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about the mindset that you have a little bit. And we talked about habits, but I want to talk about the little disciplines that maybe you do or that anybody can extract from this and use to get you in that good mindset, to get you in that mindset of growth, of wanting to change, willing to change, looking at where can I improve, because that's rare. It's very rare. Most people don't have that. And I think that sets you apart from a lot of people. Clearly, it has. So, what are some things that you do to keep you in that mindset and to help refresh the slate?
Yeah, I think it's honestly the first time you go into it is all good and dandy, and then you get to a certain point where sometimes it's scary to go back there, and especially I'm talking about really getting pushed outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um, it's scary for me before every off season because I know we're about to go into uncharted waters. But I
Yeah.
got that from a guy. We were in the tubs, the hot and cold tub. And he's at University of Washington now. He's a track athlete, 400-meter runner. So anyone who knows, 400-meter is just the most brutal race
Yeah.
in the world. And he told me that he said every single year I look to go into uncharted waters. Another thing that sticks out to me, Cooper Cup, his
Yeah.
mindset was every single year was my freshman year. Like every
Mm,
single year he'd go for 1,500 yards, be the league MVP, and he would still it'd be a reset. So that's part of it, and really having that. There's obviously so many different things that I do to prime myself in the morning, like gratitude and
mm,
doing like a 3 to thrive. But I just think too, like if you link pain to the past, present, and future on certain limiting beliefs, they will go away. But if you only link it to the future or the present, sometimes those things can stick around. And so, like we talked about earlier, I link so much pain to having a fixed mindset and being closed off to things because I know I'll be right where I am, and
yeah.
I see it in the future. And
Yeah.
being in a horrible situation where I'm not growing, I'm disappointed, and I overdo it. I make it. I got
Yeah.
hair
Yeah.
falling out of everywhere, and I'm fat, whatever.
Yeah. Out of shape, all that. Yeah.
Yep. And then I link it to like that to the present moment, and then also to my past actions of having a fixed mindset or whatever. And so there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go in my mind, and so I must change. And that's when
Yes.
people change, when your back's against the wall, or when you have enough leverage, when there's a catalyst for change. And so
Mm,
that initial one, don't wait to get into that pain. A lot of people wait for the pain to change, but you can
yeah.
bring it to yourself right now because it's all cognitive, and there's so many things that you could think about, right? Like to get you to that moment to really want you to change. So that's the first thing I'd say. And then really maintaining that growth mindset. This is really simple, but I printed out this page from Carol Dweck from her book Mindset. You should read that book. Everyone should read that book. If you haven't, you're missing out. And it's the first book that I give to everybody when they ask me what book to read. And it's a page and it says, there's a chart for fixed mindset, and it's leads to a desire to, or on the growth mindset, it says leads to a desire to learn and therefore tendency to, this, and then it just keeps going on, right? Like take feedback from criticism,
Yeah.
see effort as the path to mastery, find inspiration in the success of others. I can
Yeah.
keep them up. You see it. I can remember them though, because I read it every single day. And then the other one,
I
the
love
fixed
that.
mindset one, is to see as obstacles is permanent and all these
Yep.
things. So printing out that sheet and having it somewhere for you to look at daily would be something really good. But I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing is I just learned really quickly that was the fundamental thing, was having that growth mindset and really having that belief. And I think some other people, they learn other things differently in a different order in their journey to becoming the best version of themselves. But if you can really start to frame that as, okay, this is the fundamental thing of everything, having that growth mindset, I think it's so huge. And then also too, like, I think what really proved it to me was I started working out. This sounds so stupid, but well, it's not stupid, but it's like it's one of those things where people look at some of these fitness people and they're like, wow, like whatever, they came from this to that and now they're acting all different. But it's so true. Think about this. That's the number one way you can prove it to yourself right away is you go and you work out in the gym. You got better from working hard, from
Mm-hmm.
looking at these weaknesses and working on them. So the gym is such a translator, a metaphor for life, that if you can do that in the weight room, you can do it anywhere, and you can see the results, right? So it's a little different. You can't sometimes
Yes.
see the results of you thinking differently, right? Actually see it. And so I think the weight room was such a great thing for me to prove that to myself. And so for other people, just start doing those things that would get you better. Even if you don't believe they would get you better, go do them. And then look, you'll get better. And now you can always come back to that and be like, okay, through hard work comes mastery, right?
Yeah.
So
No, I definitely agree with that. It takes, and one day say it takes like 10,000 hours to be a master at something, right? So if you want to get good at it, got to start somewhere, right? Like, why
yeah,
not just start? It doesn't, and I think the tough part there, and what I've found is that, oh, that means I got to dedicate my life to this, to whatever. I got to do this many hours. And oh, because Nolan Ulm is working out, he's being an athlete 8 hours a day. It's like, no, set aside a reasonable amount of time. Do it every day. Watch it compound. Right. So something
absolutely.
that is actionable within the realm of time that you do have, because we all do have
Yeah.
some. We all have
Well,
some
yeah,
capacity. Some people's lives are more full, some people are less. We have some that you can give and dedicate to that. And I think the big one there is the habit of it. Right.
absolutely.
It's the like, okay, I'm putting this aside for myself. Um, Something I want to go back on, like you just said, is it's my favorite topic, and I call it my cheat code. Is you start with gratitude, and I absolutely love that because it can cleanse your brain, kind of get you prepped, put you in a good mindset. But you'd mentioned your 3 to thrive. Do you want to maybe dive in a little bit about? I know what that is, because of the people that we follow and the world we're diving into. But do you want to maybe dive into what that looks like for you and somebody else? How could they do that?
Yeah. And before we get into that real quick, even just what you said, right? Like the 10,000 hour rule. And this is what
Yeah,
I learned was immediately, it was like, okay, boom, right? A lot of people are like, okay, that's an easy box I can check. But the reality is it's not 10,000 hours of just practice. It's 10,000 hours of intentional, purposeful, deliberate practice, right?
yeah,
And so
yes,
I think a
yes,
lot of people can
yes,
sometimes miss out on that. And also it's like, there's so many layers to that too, like progressing all these things. But I think you're right. Like it really isn't that big of a task, especially because if you really set a year-long commitment to do something for 15 minutes a day, whether that's studying someone, whether that's learning to play the guitar. I got a guy down here, the head strength coach for Gonzaga University, which they're known for their incredibly successful basketball teams.
yeah,
And there's a guy named Mike Nilsson. He's one of my mentors, and I talk about the power of a positive peer group. He's changed my life, and I go and walk them every other weekend. And he talks about those commitments and that
yeah,
every single year he makes a commitment to study one person for 15 minutes a day. Now, one day it might be 45 minutes, the next day it might be 2 hours, but no
yeah.
matter what, he's going to do 15 minutes. And he had a heart surgery and he still did it on that day and the day after the surgery. And he said he was grinding, but he did 15 minutes. And so I
Hmm.
think if people would be surprised how great you can become at something if you set aside 15 minutes a day. So that was just one thing um, that stuck out to me there. But sorry, what was the other question that you asked me?
Oh, I almost forgot too, but the 3 to Thrive.
Yeah, the 3 to Thrive. This is one that can be difficult too, and I don't know if you can relate, Nathaniel, but man, sometimes it can be really hard to get into gratitude. And so
Yep.
the 3 to Thrive really is just principally it's think about 3 things you're grateful for. So I'll do a Wim Hof breathing cycle before it. I'll think about 3 things I'm grateful for, right? Starting with my physiology with the breathing. So that's there's the fundamental of the decisions that you make and the emotions that you have, and that emotion is the number one resource, right? It's never a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness for us humans. And so the triad of I set my physiology right, like I want to be strong, I want to be in a position where my best self would stand, move, and the Wim Hof thing, it just totally oxygenates my whole body, makes me feel incredible. And that'd be something that people can dive into. It's super incredible way to
Yep.
automatically just get yourself going. Get high on your own supply, I guess, right? I would
Yeah.
know what getting high is like, but then we get to the gratitude, right? And really it's just setting your focus, my focus for the day, and that
Mm.
no matter what, there's always certain things that we're noticing. And it's just the reticular activating system, and how
Yep.
you buy a Tesla, you're going to see a Tesla everywhere. And so you start your day with gratitude, you're going to start to be grateful for more things. Now, that's not a promise, right? And so I'll talk a little bit about like how I deal with some of those difficulties with that in a sec. But then I do that. And then 3 goals. And those can
Mm.
be 2 years from now, 1 year from now, this day,
Yep.
that week. And so I think about 3 things and I see them accomplished. I feel the excitement of that. And sometimes it's tough because I wake up after a 3 hour practice the day before and my body feels like it's just been thrown in the drying machine. And yeah, like my feet, I can barely walk, but you get going and it's all right. 5 in the morning and we got to lift that morning. It can be really tough to feel gratitude. And I think it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm grateful to be alive. Oh yeah, like I'm
Cool.
grateful
Yeah.
for my significant other or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in order to really feel that, you need to ask the question with an intent to search and
Mm.
find an answer, right? It can't just
Okay.
be, what am I grateful for? It really has to be, okay, what am I grateful for? How does that make me feel?
Ooh, I like
How
that.
does
'Cause
that make me feel?
I
Because
like
if
that
you
a
don't
lot.
get to that, right, then there's no point. Then it's just all cognitive and it's never in your heart. And if you live in your head, you're dead. And so it's all
I
about getting into your heart. And I'm not perfect. So there's different frames that I use that help me with gratitude. Some of them are I go in the future and then I look back at this moment and I know that in the future, I'm going to look back as this is the good times, no matter what. Even I look
yeah.
back, some of the best times of my life were just those painful, lonely, rocky montage days in Kelowna in high school, just so pure. It was just about getting better, about the work.
Yeah.
And, I can feel so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Or there's a couple different ways to do this. There's one of them that I use is I imagine my family getting in a horrible crash. And then
I'm not
they're
okay.
yeah,
Yep.
and then they're gone, right? But then all of a sudden, wait, they're here again, right? Like it's like, yes,
I've never
seriously.
heard that method before. And it's funny because gratitude is something that helped change my life around. I've done a gratitude journal for about, I stopped now, but now we just do it at the dinner table every day with the kids.
That's awesome.
And that's game changing. But I used to journal and I would just journal every day. And sometimes it
Yeah.
was like, it was I'm thankful I can breathe. I'm thankful that, like, especially if you're going through really hard times. And for anybody listening, this is my cheat code to life. If you're going through tough times, if you get kicked in the junk, this is the cheat code. Is is just finding anything. It could be something as simple as like you have arms, you have legs, you can go to the washroom without help, you can eat food, like, anything. But I've never heard that method before. And it's kind of like it makes me laugh. I don't know why I'm laughing because like it's so ridiculous, but I get it. I get it. You could use the extreme there, but yeah, sometimes you do have to put yourself in the scenario of and like, right, this could be a reality.
Right.
And it could be something maybe, maybe not as crazy as like your family's got, but even something as simple as like, what if I had to, it's starting to get cold out here, but sure is down there. Like, what if I had to walk to work every day? Man, that would be like, and it's like far, you know, man, that's pretty tough. I'm grateful I got a truck or a car or whatever I got, or maybe I can take the bus or whatever it is. But like,
Yeah,
that's yeah,
absolutely.
like flip it around a bit. I really like that strategy. That's cool. I personally wouldn't go that extreme, but I get it. I get it.
And you can tell I'm an intense guy, and sometimes it really is just so hard for me to I just get really frustrated with certain situations because I really want things to be a certain way, and that's one thing that I need to work on as well. And um, we all have hard things, and it's not even about hard things that happen to me. Sometimes when it's unjust things or
Yeah.
things that are just like, dang, like there really is politics to this game, to this sport,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, I want to be able to control it so bad, and then it makes you feel bitter and all these things. But whenever I'm at my best, I don't know about other people, but it's almost like giving is a sense of gratitude to others,
Yes.
making them feel good, pushing their
Yes.
feel good buttons,
Yeah.
and finding out how to meet their needs in a great and productive way. And
Yep.
so, yeah, I think, like you said, like journaling is probably one of the best too. I mean, that's really one thing I need to be better at. It can just slip through the day so easy, but it's like when you really get into that flow of doing it, it becomes a conversation with yourself, and you can really be like, no, I am really grateful
Yeah.
for this. Man, like I have a freaking phone that people 10 years ago wouldn't have been like,
Yeah.
look at the things we can do with this. So
Yeah.
I think,
It's magic.
yeah, absolutely. And talking to people, like you said,
Yeah.
like that are happier people or grateful people, that's going to make you a more quote unquote happy, whatever, uplifting person. Because the reality is,
Totally.
those happy people or the optimistic people, they just have a pattern of focus that is different from yours. And the
Yeah.
reality is, you're just not that disciplined with your mind, with your focus. And that's the thing when these people are down and stuff. And at a certain point, like, yes, bad things happen, but man, it comes back to that one life thing, right? Like, are you really
Yeah.
going to make yourself suffer when, like, look at some of these other people that Viktor Frankl, I mean, he was in those Nazi concentration camps, and he knew that he could control what he focused on. He knew he could
Mm.
control his response to this horrible torture, this abuse. And he was almost like, it was like a blissful, peace in this
Wow.
absolutely god awful environment. And so, if he can do that, then we can. And so it just depends on
Totally.
what level of leadership are you trying to take in your life, because the leaders, they focus on things that are only productive and going to move people forward. And really, the reality is a lot of people just are addicted to those negative emotions, and they got to break
Yeah.
out of being their self.
Totally. If you that's actually interesting you said that, because if you done some Dr. Joe Dispenza courses, and if you look at that, neurons that fire together wire together. So being negative becomes a habit, and it's easy. Like, and it becomes, instead of it being like if you're trained and you're constantly training your brain to be grateful, great gratitude becomes a highway that you're just like, there's no
Yes.
traffic, let's go. But it takes time, repetition. And I love what you said there. And that's another aspect I really want to add for myself, is to really feel it. Like, right, okay, like feel it, and how it feels in my body. And but on the other side is people can make negativity the highway. And so I would say, like, what do you think your life is going to be like if you have a negativity to highway and a rocky path to happen to good things, right? It's not going to be very enjoyable, and you're going to be upset
Exactly.
about a lot of things in life. So I really, really appreciate that one. And yeah, like you said, journaling it, definitely huge, because now it becomes like I almost started doing it because it became a chore in a good way. And like, no, right, I have to actually go do this. And if I missed a day, and you said it before, is even if you missed a day, that's fine. Go back and I would double up the next day. Right. Something on a different note is on the same idea of growth, was for me, and the mindset was, I'm going to learn something new every day, just one thing. And if you look and you start doing it, and you take 15 minutes and learn something new every day, it's one, you're setting aside your humility, you're recognizing you don't know everything, and learn something. But then when you look back and you're like, man, I've done a year, like that's 365 things you've learned. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of information. And especially if you can act on it and use it, which is so cool. That,
Awesome.
yeah, it's such an easy tool for anybody. My next question for you, and we're kind of wrapping up here, but meditation, being present, what do you do to meditate? Do you meditate? And what are, sound like you kind of are with your gratitude in the morning, your breathing, but do you meditate? And then I want to talk about visualization on that. And then just to wrap this up.
Yeah, meditating is huge, man. Like that, when I went on this journey initially in high school, like I really started going on the self-development journey when I was whatever 14, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to be better. And so
Yeah.
meditation is just one of those boxes that everyone has on that list of becoming the best version of yourself, and just the awareness. And so
Yes.
I started with the guided ones, and that was really good. And I had this teacher. Some of these teachers were so incredible that I had, and I love how it's seeping into schools, this modern way of thinking, and just really, that's probably one of the things I took out of, like, I couldn't tell you what I learned in middle school, but I'll never forget Miss Simonchoni's mindfulness practice and how we would
Ooh.
sit there and breathe. And she had a chime. It was incredible. And then even I took a yoga class my 11th grade year. I would highly recommend anyone with kids in high school, like, get them to take that yoga class. I learned so much about, like, that'll be with me for the rest of my life. The flow, the sunset or sun salutations, and the
Yep.
Sanskrit stuff, understanding that, and then breathing and shavasana and mindfulness. And it was so incredible. And so that's where a lot of mine came from too, is yoga. And I love that is a mindfulness practice. And the reality is everything can be a form of meditation or mindfulness. And so when I really was struggling here with some mental things, I would do 20 minutes a day and I'd count to 10 without having any thoughts. That would be my goal. Sometimes I would only get to 2, and
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I got from Mark Divine, who his podcast, Staring at the Wolf or something like that. But he's a former SEAL, and he's super into all that stuff and implementing that in box breath. So there's so many different ways that you can go, and it becomes really, really fun because it's a shower from the mind. It's incredible
Yeah.
if you can really find the time and make it. And so I'm actually going to be taking a big next step in my meditation journey. I'm going to be taking a TM course, so a transcendental meditation course. I just
Awesome.
had my initial consultation and it was phenomenal. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Some of the most high performers use that. A lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of
Yep.
actors and actresses. So it's really interesting. So that's one thing that I'm going to dive into. I wish I was already in it so I could tell you how it was, but
Yeah.
uh, that's one thing. And then, yeah, like just like you said, like going into the visualization piece, that to me is just another form of meditation. So it really started to shift as I got on in my career here and developing sensory acuity. So
Mm.
touch, taste, feel, all these things, and my ability to see these things that I wanted before they happened.
Yep.
Skills in the football field. I can only do so much with my body, but I can do infinite amount with my
Yeah.
mind if I can really handle it. And so I do 15 minutes and I'll visualize a different part of my game every morning. And so
Mm.
whatever your profession you're in, or the different areas of your life, you can spend 15 minutes visualizing it. And I'll start it off by having a piece of fruit. So whether that's a strawberry or whatever, and I'll feel it,
Mm.
I'll smell it, I'll taste it. And one thing I need to get better at was hearing the sounds of biting into it. And then even if you want to put yourself in a room where there's sounds, but now you're primed. So I prime all my senses, and then boom, I'm in on the football field and I can feel my cleats in the turf. I can hear the crowd. You know, I can smell the smell of the eye black on my face. I can feel the mouth guard on my mouth. I can taste what the mouth guard feels like. Boom. And now I'm doing a release, or I'm running a route. I'm catching a
Yep.
pass, right? And so that's one thing that I've really started to dive into, and even just submodalities. And so there's just different ways of us seeing these images and how it comes best for you. So far, close, wide, looking from above, brightness, all these different things. There's so many,
Mm.
and that's what I would really recommend going and checking out Tony's books,
Yep.
Unlimited Power, and then Awaken the Giant Within. And so, yeah, that's kind of those practices. And there's so many different things people can implement off. I'm saying that, but I just recommend just learning, like you said, learning a little bit every day and progressing as the years go. But you need to have some sort of mindfulness practice, and that can
Yes.
just be, like I said, a yoga. Even when you work out, pick a playlist, put your freaking phone away, and just feel the contraction of your muscles and breathe into your muscles and be in the present moment. But
Mm.
there's the most electric experiences, and what I search for, this is what I live for, is those flow experiences. And
Mhm.
they are incredible. I'm out there on the field and it's just catching the ball. I'm not there. There's no sense of self. I'm just in that flow. And a lot of that takes, craft mastery. And it's almost been 10 years of me really putting a lot into this, but
Mm.
you can do that with anything. And you can be in a flow of serving your significant other. You could be in a flow
Totally.
of parenting. And I've seen it
Yep.
before. And so,
Yep. In
yeah, those are some
business, in
things, but
sales,
yeah, exactly.
in anything. And I think the underlying principle there, and you kind of mentioned it with your practice there, and I think this is so lacking. And I say it's our most valuable resource, right? Is time. And really one on that is presence. The most valuable thing you give somebody is a presence. So, but most people don't know how to do that. Most people don't know how to be present, especially with today's society. Screens, getting dopamine hits every time you get a like, and you go to their next video, and you're constantly getting stimulated. You're not present. And everything you described there, the underlying principle was that you're present. When you're eating the
Absolutely.
strawberry, you're present. And that's the training there. You train yourself to be present, be right now.
Yeah.
And what a, you know, I always give the example of like, think of the best moments in your life. What were you doing? You weren't here, first of all. Guaranteed you were not staring at your phone. Probably wasn't even watching a movie or anything like that. You were doing something physical, you're moving, and you were present. And you remember that so vividly. And you can feel it now. You can probably think of one, you can feel it in your chest, the emotions. And those to me, that's what we're here for. We're here for those moments, those amazing things. Maybe it was I went ziplining this summer. I hate heights. I hate heights. Like I like not, but I was like, no, I gotta push past my fear. I gotta move through this in a way that I can manage. But I was present. I could tell you I was very present for every second of that experience, right? And it ended up being a lot of fun. So
That's
definitely,
awesome, man. That was really good stuff. You kind of got me going there. That's a good point too, and I'm gonna start using that question more with people. What were the best moments of your life? And you got even got me thinking because it's like, yeah, it really wasn't. Like there were some great movies, but yeah, the
yeah,
best moments were out in nature or just like seeing someone do something like something all the work paying off to this moment and it's just and this is what and I'll kind of say one of these this will be some of our I know it's we're coming to an end here but man every thought has an electrical impulse
yes,
and every thought matters and I think
yes,
that mindfulness that meditation seeing those cars driving by noticing these impulses these things
hmm
you're putting out into the universe with God whatever you believe in a higher power it's all leading to your direction and your ultimate your destiny in your life so all these things matter and
yep,
like you said it's all about creating environments creating opportunities to experience that flow and experience
yep,
those best moments in
yeah,
people's lives like you just said.
yeah, absolutely. It made me think of, you're talking about energy, all those thoughts have energy, right? It's measurable. Those thoughts are measurable now, and they can actually measure that. A good example is they can measure your heart, for example, when you're feeling gratitude and love, and you're thinking about that, you're connecting your brain and your heart. Your energy produced from your heart. I don't know the technical term off the top of my head. I'm not there yet. But that energy, they can measure that energy, right?
Yeah.
I think it's EKG, I think is what they're using. Maybe I'm wrong, but either way, they're measuring the energy coming from your heart. Well, that when you're feeling that gratitude, that love, that field goes to 9 meters wide, which blows my mind. And so at first, like if you had told me that 5, 6 years ago, I'm like, well, whatever, like woo woo, this is all wooey. But then I give the examples of like, think about when you know it because you feel it, and anybody that's played football can feel. You can feel when the team is excited and things are going your way, and like, hey, we got a momentum shift coming here. Everybody can feel it. You can step into a room where there's been a fight and you can feel it, but you don't know you didn't hear the fight, but you can feel it. So that energy does have power. So you can use those thoughts, that emotion, that intention to affect those people around you by saying nothing, by doing nothing different other than just having that. And because you can feel it. And there's studies showing it. And I don't have it all in front of me right now, but there's a lot. And this is stuff I'm always researching and learning is that has power, tangible power that you can feel. So that's why I love this topic. And I love that you are diving into this because on a team sport like that, you can have such an impact. And I was watching your video earlier and I'm like, you're seeing you're rallying the boys. And I was getting fired up and I was like, man, this is so cool because you can, you're using that right there. It's real. And I think the lesson here is, well, I'll say two things. One is that I just tell everybody and kids I coach and anybody helping with whether it's sales, whether it's relationship stuff, is that you can always control two things always in this world, no matter what, is your attitude and your effort. And it's just that simple. And sometimes that's where you got to put all your attention to because the outside stuff you can't control. And if you break it down into, what you want in this world, right? And if you want change, if you want something different, putting attention on those things. And like you said, taking time for presence, taking time to visualize, take time and see those things because how can you have those things if you can't see it up here first? A good example on that is like the device we're talking to each other on. Somebody pictured this in their head first, right? And then they put it into action. Then they did it. But it's those two. It's the thought first and then the action.
Mm.
And that's why I love what you're doing, because you, Nolan, are doing that. And it's so cool to see. And I'm excited to see what more comes your way. And even if I'm just on the sidelines, just watching, but I know you got a lot more just amazing stuff coming your way and can make such a big impact. So
Man, that means a lot. Now you were going into the talk about flow. You were in flow right there. So it's cool to see even from a distance too the man that you've become. And I just want to commend you and I really appreciate everything you're doing for the community and everything over there. We need more leaders. And you know how I feel about Kelowna and stuff. And so I'm right on the same page with you, man, and impact in this world and the impact that you're making. So I really enjoyed the time here. I can't wait to re-listen to it, to listen to things that you're talking about because there's so much that I can take away from this. And I just think it's awesome what you're doing. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you as well. And if anybody wants to follow you and all the amazing stuff you're doing, like you said, you're playing in football. If you're a football fan, got to watch this, watch some of the highlights. It's so cool to see. And it was funny. I was gonna make a little tidbit is that I feel like maybe I'm wrong here, but it was like half of your plays weren't yours to make. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like it was designed to go somewhere else because, and in my head, I was like, oh, this is the hard work, the hustle, the energy that you talked about, getting in that position to make that play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought that was really cool. But you can watch him play. You're coaching, got your podcast. Do you want to maybe mention that a little bit in some of the camps, and then we'll close this down.
Yeah. So I got the Make It Happen podcast. That's anywhere you can find your podcast. And then that really, we get a ton of athletes on there, but it's really what I was saying to you earlier, right? It's for those people that want more and want to
Yes.
learn from peak performers. And then I talk about a bunch of different subjects that I'm studying, whatever it takes, like I said, to become the leader of your life
Yeah.
and lead others and take control and really start that growth process to becoming someone that is incredible. And so that's that. And then, yeah, man, we got the Make It Happen football camp. That was an absolutely massive success. It was so awesome. It's gonna blow up. We got a bunch of NFL Canadian guys coming back this year, and so I can't say too
Wow.
much, but it's gonna
Oh.
be. We're looking to make it the best camp in the entire country, and then eventually in the world. And so that's the goal. So it was good. It was good. Really, that was our second year. We had about 100 kids out, and
That's
it was a good
amazing.
time. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like
So
truly, if anybody's organized stuff, that's actually really cool. So great job on that, buddy. That's
well, I appreciate it. And it's
yeah, I
funny,
love
one of
that.
the coolest things about that was that we had 20 plus D1, current D1, former CFL, NFL. Like we had some dudes that I brought out like 10 plus my teammates. And I think that's one of the first times ever that we've brought out that many D1 players coming out. And so we need
Yeah,
to see everyone
unheard
in the
of.
Okanagan, everyone in BC, and then as many people as we can from the other provinces out to this because we're creating an environment that's unlike any other and it's all about growth. I don't care
Yeah.
about stars. It's not about the coaches. It's nonprofit. All the proceeds go to local charities, Mamas for Mamas and the Care Society. I'm super
Oh, I
huge on
love
giving
that.
back to single mothers, coming from a
Oh,
single mother myself. And so
yeah. Yeah,
the
that warms
purpose
the
behind
heart.
it is awesome, man. We're really just trying to unite the community, and the idea is we're going to bring back all the alumni, the D1 Canadians, the NFL Canadians, the former CFL Canadians. We're going to bring them together, and we're going to have an incredible environment where we bond these guys, create relationships for life, and then serve these athletes. And we're going to have a youth camp. We'll have a coaches clinic. We want to serve the coaches too by bringing that world class access back to Kelowna. So that's that.
I love that.
And then
It
yeah,
made me
obviously
tear up
just
a little bit. Sorry, just we talk about serving back, having come from a single mom. So I love that. That's that's huge. So yeah, I'm
man,
excited to
that's
see this next
awesome.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that means a lot. And you know what? And it's really cool that it hits you in the heart like that
Mhm.
because those single mothers are really the leaders of this future generation and they need the help. And my mom, she had 3 jobs and it was so tough. I mean, 7-layer dip she's eating so that I can eat good food. And so I'm
Yeah.
so passionate about that. And that is
Yeah.
really a big part of my why too. I know you asked that earlier,
Yeah.
but
I
you
love
can
that.
see there's so many different ways to serve that. And so that, and then yeah, on social media, I just have a ton of stuff that's all this, inspiring others and creating the next leaders. Nolan Ulm is this, you'll just find it anywhere. I got a YouTube channel, I got a bunch of videos out there. And
Yeah.
so I really want to help, especially the places that I've been, like
Yeah.
the
Yes.
athletes my age and down, college, high school, football players, non-football players, got a bunch of day in the life, but it's all I want to really fuse together education and entertainment and create that, edutainment or whatever you want to call it.
I like
And
that.
get, use these social media tools as a productive means to impact
Yes.
people. And so
Yes.
that's what I'm doing with that. And then, yeah, what I got going on right now is we got a lifting seminar coming up for the athletes, and it's basically our winter version of the camp. And this is going to be something I'm going to develop over the years, but
Nice.
as a business that I'm starting to do is make it happen
Perfect.
performance. And so we're going to have online coaching for kids to give them those resources that I was very lucky enough to have, but a lot of kids don't have,
Yeah.
and the access to those technologies and different ways of training. It's always changing. And so we're going to have a weightlifting camp here in a couple of weeks, December 17th in Kelowna. And so it'll be good. We had one last year, same thing. It was really good, but I want to see as many of those local athletes as we can. And I'm going to show guys what it took for me to get from power cleaning 140 to now cleaning 335 to benching 150 to benching 330. And obviously we're not going to do it one session, but I'm going to show them, right, that performance profile that we talked about earlier. And I want to give the best
path.
coaching that there is available. And so we're working on getting those things together. We have that set. And so that's kind of what I got going on right now.
I love that.
I guess it's quite a few things, but
it is. But you know what? You're passionate about it, and your heart's there, and people feel that. I feel it. I'm 1,000 miles away here, or whatever it is, and I can feel that. So thank you again for being on the show. Thank you for being you. And yeah, I appreciate you being here.
Of course, man. It was truly a pleasure.
Awesome. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time in your day. Hopefully you're learning from these episodes, as I know I am, especially with these interviews. They are so wonderful. If you want to support the podcast further, please like and share. If you haven't yet, you can go on Spotify and rate the show. That always helps. You can subscribe on YouTube. And then lastly, you can go to lifepurposely.ca, sign up for our newsletter there, where we are sending out weekly thought-provoking ideas and ways to help you live your best life and to live with more purpose, and tips and strategies that we find change our lives. So thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.